Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats and turn off any of your devices. Are we ready?
There you are. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Colonel Shepard. This is Anthony. You know me, Chief Warrant Officer Atwood. And I have about 10 different hats I wear, and I teach at the university part-time, and I'm the chief cook and bottle washer here. So anyhow, this is unusual. This is a Zoom it's a Zoom roundtable because of the realities we're living with these days. But in any case, we're about ready to start. We wanted to say welcome aboard to everyone who's watching us and everyone who's can fit in the room. And so to start matters off correctly, I would like to ask Joe Martori if he would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. There's a stand of colors right there.
There we go. Okay.
Right here, Joe.
Facing the flag, I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A moment of silence for the fallen. There it is. Thanks, everybody. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right. Let me help get this started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Fonseca. I direct the Institute for Public Policy at Florida International University. I'm delighted to be here. I'm going to serve as a co-facilitator, but I'm really here to introduce our rock star moderator, Willard Shepard. Everyone knows Willard, of course, a 5-time Emmy Award-winning journalist. One of the things I brag about most, there's 2 things. One, he's a graduate of FIU, so I'd be remiss if I didn't point that out. And number 2, he's a Gulf War fighter pilot, so he's a veteran. So he's a part of both of our communities, our university, and of course, his commitment to service. Of course, Willard has a long-standing, amazing career in media, but beyond that, his commitment to public service is unparalleled. I mean, he's done an amazing job at helping cultivate our youth in the veteran community, and some of the initiatives he's had, and he still has, and the hats he wears with 5,000 role models and within the Miami-Dade County public school system. And so again, Willard needs little introduction. So Willard, I'm going to turn it over to you in just a minute, but so that I don't get in trouble, I want to plug this. We have Gus Cruz with us and Commissioner Pepe Diaz, and Gus have worked really hard to support our veteran community. And so I want to make sure I plug the Miami-Dade County Active Military and Veteran COVID Relief Program. The commissioners worked really hard to pull this thing together. The thing I want to highlight is the website. It's www.miamidadecovidrelief.org. The .org is really important. Gus and I were talking about that. A lot of people going to .com or .gov, but it is .org. It's Miami-Dade County, Miami-Dade COVIDrelief.org. And so with that, I'll turn it over to you, Colonel Shepard. Run with it.
Okay. Good morning, Brian. Always great to see you. Commissioner Bovo, welcome, and welcome to the museum. The doctor there has done an incredible job, and we appreciate all the funding and get more people to come through and see all the great things that they have going there. And always give a shout out. Big thanks to the Diaz-Balart family, who's really supported our law school over at FIU. And I always brag, that our law school has the highest bar passage rate in the state of Florida. And we're going to continue that tradition. So I tease my Cane fans, go Canes, and the Gators and the Knolls about all of that. So we appreciate that notice. And we always want to encourage our young people to look forward to maybe going to FIU. My son will be going there in a few weeks. So we're looking forward to it. Commissioner, thank you so much for being with us. And Gus is over there, all the work that Commissioner you've done with Pepe Diaz, our military liaison for the community on the board there. I just want to talk to you very briefly as part of that CARES Act money that you all obtained, that for veterans, for people in the military reserve and things. This is an opportunity I'm sure, Commissioner, this falls in line of all the things you're trying to do to help our small businesses. So
Yep.
can you address that first, please?
Well, what I think the most important thing is that those that are interested in applying and those of us that have to promote for application, we need to get it done quick. This is federal money, and whatever is not spent goes back to the federal government. So in an ironic twist, you know, we need to spend this money while we have it here. And let me take the moment to, you know, congratulate my colleague, Commissioner Diaz. I mean, he speaks so loudly for the veterans in County Hall, and make sure that, you know, whatever we do at County Hall, there's a veteran hook somehow or another to make sure that we're not leaving our veterans behind. And so that's, to me, the real takeaway is those, you know, and it's laid out here on the website. Those that are interested, we need to make sure, we need to make sure those they know and need it are applying, because this money is available for them. And you know, the $20 million that Commissioner Diaz sponsored for this end, it would be disheartening if we have to send back a lot of that money. And the reason I say this is because in other instances where we have put together CARES packages, CARES Act money packages for other issues, they're not applying. And it may be part of a function of not getting the word out enough, but we do need to use whatever means available, social media, through the networks that we have with the different veteran associations. But that's fundamental and key. We want to make sure that they take full advantage of this money. This could be, and most of this stuff, if not all, is forgivable.
Okay. Commissioners, a lot of people don't realize in the general public, this is one of the #1 places in the country where military personnel and veterans especially settle when they come off of active duty, go on the reserve. Busiest Coast Guard station here in the country in this district. Of course, Southcom there, where I was stationed for a long time in Doral. And our other reserve functions, a Homestead Area Reserve Base, obviously close to my heart down in the southern part of Miami-Dade County. And these businesses cut across the board. So I want you to talk to us about big picture, this pandemic, where we are. You know, you and I have had these conversations over the last 60, 90 days about your direction and vision for us going forward, of which I always say we're all in the same boat. And our veteran and military community is in that boat along with our civilians. So tell us about your plan to rise our boat and get us sailing again.
Yeah, well, again, I appreciate the opportunity, and you know, probably the biggest hurdle that the next mayor that I'm going to have, God willing, if elected, is having to make sure that we navigate this pandemic. What we have seen, in all honesty, for the first time, most of us are now understanding the reach of local government. Local government has literally polarized the entire economy, not just here, all over the nation. So I would tell you, the first thing I do is I need to sit down with all 34 mayors and administrators of the county. We got to get on one page. We can't have disjointed conversations where Hialeah's doing something, Miami-Dade's doing something else, because you can imagine the confusion. Most of our residents do not recognize or understand or care to understand about jurisdictional borders between cities and what's not a city and what's a county. You know, as far as they're concerned, we got to be on one page. So I think that's the first and foremost thing, one page. The second thing is, I believe where we've made a mistake is that we created rules and then implemented those rules on businesses across the county. And I'd like to flip that. And what I'd like to do in a different tone is, with the cities and collaborations, is go to the business communities and just simply ask them a simple question. How do you take care of your patrons? How do you take care of your employees? And then we'll enforce that plan. And that could mean a lot of things. That could mean air handlers, taking your temperature, social distancing. But the business community understands full well that they can't come back at full-fledged if they don't have the parameters where customers feel safe when they're going into their businesses. So for me, this is fundamental. If we could just have them design the plan and then we hold them accountable. And I should add a caveat. Part of that designing of the plan should have some medical input. It's not just someone just saying, look, this is how we're going to do it and we're good. No, let a medical person opine. And then we could even go a step further and put some sort of decal or notice at their door of their business that would give them the assurances that this company, this business, this place you're going to go into, this restaurant, has complied with all COVID requirements. So at least the customer feels safe. At the end of the day, the customer still has the decision of whether they want to go or not, but at least safe. Because one of the things that we can't do is, assuming we're going to live with this pandemic for the next 6 months or a year, we're not going to live like this. It's just impossible for us to expect that the federal government is going to continue to send money. It's impossible for us to think that residents are going to limit their activities. We're already seeing it's very difficult to get them to comply because they're just getting frustrated. And then the other thing I would tell you, and let me, before I get on to the other thing, is that, you know, for me, the mom and pop operators are the ones that have been most crucially hit. You know, there are businesses that could absorb the loss. There are restaurants that have ample capacity. They may be part of a chain. They could absorb some of these losses. But the mom and pop restaurants just can't. So when we talk about 25% opening, to me, that's unsustainable when you consider that that restaurant has to pay 100% of the rent, 100% of the utilities. It just doesn't work. And I think we need to collaborate more with that mom and pop and just hold them accountable. We're all adults here. Let's hold people accountable. And I think we could move on. And then the other thing, which is very, very crucial, we can't ignore, is the fact that our tourist industry has collapsed. So I would be a proponent, very similar to what Rudy Giuliani did in New York in the aftermath of 9/11, is that once we've got our house in order, we need to then promote that Miami-Dade County is open for business. We need folks to travel. We need folks to come to Miami. Now, there's two things that could help us here. One, the weather is going to start changing quickly in the north. And that could bring folks as tourists who just want to get out of the cold weather, on top of the fact that they've been kind of sheltered now for the last 6 or 7 months. That may help us. But the other side of it is that I would encourage the tourism industry, the hotel industry in Miami-Dade County, to maybe offer promotions for those of us that live here to maybe go into their hotels. Because we need to think in terms of that person that makes the bed, does the room service, the bartender at the hotel. All those folks are without work right now. And I know well, because where I represent in the northwest end of the county, particularly Hialeah and Miami Lakes, I have a lot of residents that have gone 6, 7 months without working. So imagine the mental stress, imagine the anguish that goes on in trying to feed your family, and it's a challenge. And the statistics are showing we're having an uptick in calls on our suicide hotlines. We're having an uptick in domestic call violences to our police department. You know, the mental health toll is there, it's real, and it needs to be addressed. One of the ways I think is we just got to open up. We got to go back to as humanly possible, normal, whatever that means moving forward.
Commissioner, you mentioned the weather in the north, and I'm originally from the Midwest, and the data now on the virus showing that they're starting to experience the things that we had during the course of the summer. You mentioned the good thing, we have people coming here. How are we going to balance, over at the airport or other intake locations, if people are coming here, to make sure that there's systems in place, and this may very well happen when you're in office here shortly, about protecting our community while we still want these people to come, because they are our lifeblood, and we need to balance that. How would we do that?
Yeah, well, it's a collaboration that's not just Miami-Dade County. It requires air carriers. It requires the cruise industry. It requires a lot of moving parts. So today, if you were to travel abroad, chances are they would do random temperature checks. Perhaps that's going to be part of the past. If you're going to travel to South Florida, the carrier may require every single person before they get on the plane to have that temperature check. We can't do it by ourselves. We can promote that we're open. We can promote a safe opening to our community, because what we want is for people to come to South Florida. But sometimes I have to remind folks that your county government was created with specific purpose, a specific intent, and that's to provide you service. Fire, police, garbage pickup. At times we stretch our county government to try to do more than I think it's designed to do. So this issue, like the rent issue, where we have so many people that are facing eviction, for me, it's important that the federal government participate, the state government participate, because it's too much of a lift. And I don't think county government alone could give the assurances. I could do everything I can at the airport as you arrive, but before you get on that plane, and if you're coming from the Midwest, or if you're coming from Philadelphia or New York to vacation or maybe spend the winter here, you need to intervene before they take that travel into our community. The gap, quite honestly, Willard, is those that are traveling by car. It'll be very difficult, and I'm not going to be a proponent, and I don't think the state would allow us to start sending up, border guards to take people's temperatures. I don't think that is going to be in the offering. But those that fly, I think there's some remedies that we could do. It's that traveler by car. Where they go, then you need to make sure you lay out everything I just said. So if you're staying in the hotel has taken all the precautions that when you're a guest, they've taken your temperature before you walk in. And again, we're going to have to live with this virus until a vaccine is widely available. And I would tell you as mayor, once that happens, we need to make sure we get vaccines in our community. So the most vulnerable in our community have access to it, as well as those that could, cover by insurance.
Last thing on this tourist area, because it is so important to all of us, and so many in the veteran and military community have spouses or they themselves work in our industry. Over at the cruise line, I know they had another event the other day. The workers want to get back to work there, get this no sail order lifted. Any more information, any ray of light there that you can shed for us, and what may you do after the 3rd of November?
Yeah, here's another one of those places that we rely heavily on the federal government and what they could do as far as green light. I have said and talked to some of the cruise industry leaders that I would advise them or propose to them that they should prepare a cruise, and they should take media on that cruise to show them the steps that they've taken to keep their customers safe. The media, maybe some government leaders, not a free cruise. I'm just not to go out, and spend a weekend out, but perhaps go out and show them the steps that they've taken as a way to start building confidence. They're going to have to do that on their own with their customers regardless to build that confidence. But look, we're feeling the impact. Miami-Dade County is a gateway to the cruise industry of the world. And yesterday in the Board of County Commission, we've authorized some rent relief for some of those cruise industries. So now we're starting to feel the ripple effect, and we don't know how that's going to impact perhaps bond ratings moving forward when you do something like we had to do yesterday, which was the right thing to do. I wasn't a participant in the meeting yesterday, but I didn't have any issue with what the board did because it's the right thing to do as far as this industry that has nourished us so much. But again, it's such a collaboration that is required, not just from our state partners who've done some good work here, but our federal partners who've helped us with funds. All three of us have to be on the same page. And one of the things that helps me, quite honestly, is I have those relationships in Tallahassee. I have them in the federal government that I think we could open the conversation that, again, is more inclusive and more broad than just, hey, what's the county going to do? Because quite honestly, we're going to be facing a $100 million budget deficit as it is. And that's going to be quite challenging on our own.
Okay. Well, I have to say to you that, I'm a very thorough person, as you're finding out in our time together. And I think that to gather the appropriate amount of data, that would need to be like a 3-day cruise. And when you get it set up and organized, that you should call me and let me know so that I can go do my thorough investigative reporting to be able to report back to the citizens of Miami-Dade County along with you.
Very wise. You're a pilot, right?
Yep.
An Air Force guy or?
Yeah, no, Air Force. There's the Marine next to you.
All right. The only reason I said because my dad's an Air Force guy, and my dad always told me Air Force guys were a lot smarter than the rest. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you can yell that loud.
I think I might have started something here.
Very much. I'm sorry. We appreciate that. Okay. There we go. Those guys say they're tough, and my son's a Marine. But I always say, especially the airplane I fly, my job is helping them. So, I always go, hey, look, man, you guys talk all that. When it goes down, you call us.
Yes, exactly.
There you go. Back to more serious matters. You mentioned due to this pandemic, but just in general, rates of substance abuse up, sadly, suicide up. In our military and veteran community, we suffer this at higher rates, which always puzzles me. What can you do, or what do you think about moving forward and working with Gus and going forward about addressing specifically this in our community? And again, we have such a large veteran and military community here.
Yeah, and again, I gotta praise Commissioner Diaz and Gus, really, who collaborated. They've been kind of frick and frack on a lot of these veteran issues in our community. You know, we have the Veterans Court that helps greatly with those that have had issues of substance abuse. You know, we don't want to put folks that are going through a bad time in jail. We don't want to turn people that are really not criminals or are dealing with issues. We want to get them the help. You know, Judge Leifman soon, hopefully, will have his facility up and running in North Dade. And under my understanding, it's going to save us millions of dollars right now from people that we're incarcerating, which their only crime has been substance abuse and dealing with, you know, the demons that they deal with. So I think more, not only more resource, which I think is going to become available because of Leifman's intervention, but I think, you know, the mayor's position can be the bully, use a bully pulpit to be able to speak and highlight these issues. There's something that is going on in our community that has me concerned. And for those that are not seeing it, maybe they're just not driving in the same place as I am. But we're seeing an increase in homelessness in Miami-Dade County, and it's starting to become alarming. And I remember a time when we created the Homeless Trust under the guidance of back then Commissioner Alex Pinellas, because we were dealing with a crisis. I think we're now getting to level of crisis again, and we have more in the offerings as far as shelters and programming between Chapman, Camilla's House, the Miami Rescue Mission, and so many other, you know, interfaith groups that are going out to help the homeless. And that's not to say that, you know, all the homeless are veterans. That's clearly not the case. But we do know we have an increase in homelessness amongst veterans. And, you know, I think we have a lot of land. County has a lot of land available that I believe that we could put in play, collaborating with developers that could create places where those that are homeless could find a place to stay. And I think that's an obligation that I think we have, especially in the veteran community. You know, as I said earlier, my dad's an Air Force pilot. I'm amongst folks here that were willing to serve their country. I think it speaks loudly of a community that's not willing to step up and then support those that were willing to give their life, right? And to me, that's a condemnation on society here in Miami-Dade County, really across the nation as far as I'm concerned, because it's not just us. It seems to be an issue across the nation. So I will tell you that working with Commissioner Diaz and working with Gus, not only make sure that veterans are getting the access to mental health and facilities, work with our VA hospital so that whatever we need to do from our end, we get that accomplished, and that I think is critically important. But on this space of looking at county-owned land that basically is ours, we could put that in play. We could put that in play with a developer to create a housing that is dignified housing and is helps a veteran transition back into getting back on their feet, right? And I think that's all we could possibly do with them, give them that avenue. I'm not sure if we're doing a good enough job on it. It's not because of lack of effort. Sometimes it's because of lack of resources. And I understand that there are some that don't want help. And we have to understand that there's some folks that pride will not allow them to go and seek the help. Sometimes us guys specifically are we fall fault to that, right? Where we don't ask for help when there are many folks that are willing to help. But, I felt that we had a good foundation as far as homeless issues in Miami-Dade County. But clearly what I'm seeing, and it could be just product of gentrification, it could be product of new development that's pushing the homeless into different areas now. But the way downtown is going, it's pushing folks further and further out of downtown, and we're starting to see it in some neighborhoods, which maybe that will be the impetus to start changing the conversation a little bit.
You addressed housing in that vein. What about housing in a bigger vein? Director Lou's done all he can. He sent me a note the other day that said that they've made some progress. But what about housing in our community, which obviously would impact our veterans and our military community, affordable housing?
Yeah, supply and demand, right? We've got an issue right now where sometimes people take an anti-development role. Right now, we have such a high demand for housing and we don't have enough supply, which has really inched up the cost of housing. The price, I could give you an example. There are garages in Westchester right now that are renting out for $1,500 a month. And I would submit to you, that's really not a plan to address the issues of housing in our community. So not just using county land, we can't take this position that no construction or moratoriums on construction. Now, we see a lot in downtown Miami, and I'm going to address that in a second because there's a concern that I think we need to do. But what we've seen in county government in many instances is that when there is vacant land and a developer wants to come and do something, the neighborhood's the first one to rise up and say, we don't want it. And we don't want it because of traffic. So that's a problem. And we're going to have to either educate folks more because this is a critical need in our community. Another area where I think we could do a lot of development is along our transit corridors. And there's an interesting marriage here. If an efficient transit corridor where there's vacant land and you could put housing, you're literally removing the car from somebody's equation. And I know it's kind of crazy to say that in Miami-Dade County, but I will submit to you that at Dadeland right now, west of that Dadeland station on about 50 acres of land, you've got a thorough TOD. So you've got, not only is it transportation, you've got work, play, living, you've got, supermarkets, you've got restaurants, apartments, office buildings. This dynamic, by the way, works everywhere it's been done. And what you've done is now, if you live on that corridor, that person, now maybe it's not for any of us, we're just condemned to the way we already move, but somebody could live in that building and never have to buy a car due to the fact that they have a Metro Rail station within yards of where they live. Now, my colleague on the Board of County Commission, Commissioner Moss, has said on many occasions, I want to see more mini Dadelands all along the south of Miami-Dade County. We could do that up the north where the transit corridor could link up all the way into Palm Beach and take land in Opalaca and in unincorporated Miami-Dade, in Miami Gardens, and create mini Dadelands wherever there's a station. And I'm sorry that I got off on a transportation conversation, but this merger of transportation and housing can address this issue of affordability. You take a car equation out of somebody's life, you're talking $1,500, $1,600 a month. That could be to rent, that could be to down payment. Now, there's another thing that I want us all to be very mindful of, which is a dynamic happening in any emerging metropolis like we are in Miami-Dade County. There is a lot of construction going on in downtown, in Midtown, Overtown, skyscrapers going up. There's international money that's coming in and buying these units at top dollar cash. And one of the things it does, it really upsets the real estate market in a way that if I come in, say you're a Chinese national and you buy the penthouse at one of these buildings and the building or the apartment's going for, let's say, $1 million, and they're putting and buying it for $1.5 million, literally bidding wars that start for these things. Imagine when the property appraiser needs to make his assessments, how that skews the market. So now you have a unit in one of these buildings, unoccupied in many instances, unoccupied, that have now wreaked havoc on our rental market and our purchase market for those that are actually going to live in the units. And I've talked to the property appraiser about coming up with ways that we could go to Tallahassee and talk in a way, or maybe measure a way that if you don't live in your unit, perhaps we assess it differently because it's unfair. It's unfair for somebody, and this happens quite a bit, Venezuelans that have poured money into Miami-Dade County and have bought properties, but hold the property, don't live in it, as they're waiting to see what happens in their country. And this has happened in other instances, yet these units are selling for top dollar where the other units are unaffordable for many. And it's all due to that demand and supply situation, but then also a huge amount of money that's overpaying for a piece of property. And we've seen this also bleed into the home buying market. And I could relay a story to you. This happens in my neighborhood where somebody puts their home up for sale and people are putting bidding wars to buy their home. And that, think about that for a second. So you put your house up for $150,000 and people are bidding, and next thing you know, you're getting $200,000. Now, great for the person selling the home, but imagine how that, again, wreaks havoc in the economy and wreaks havoc in the adjustment and assessment process, where now we're elevating the price and making things very unaffordable for people in Miami-Dade County.
Covered a lot there. We know we've got a busy day. I want to ask you directly about the museum where you are and some of our other museums around. If you become mayor, we'd obviously like to see you send some funds in these directions and these types of things. And I'm getting notes in the chat from our residents about your support for our veterans. So just tell us about educating our public and our civilians more about the military operations here and the veterans, and also this type of history and things where you are and your ideas about expanding that so more people know about what we do.
Look, so this is a soft spot in my heart. My dad's 82 years old. My dad's been involved with the Bay of Pigs Veteran Museum pretty much all his life. He's cared deeply about this because he feels that there has to be an education for future generation. I got Johnny Lopez here from the brigade. He's the president of the association. And I know he feels the same way. There has to be an education for future generations of what they were willing to do. And that's just tiny compared, obviously, to what many men and women were willing to do and the sacrifice that many put out. You know, Florida's always stepped up when called to action. And whether it's Korea, World War II, Vietnam, and all the non-war wars that we've had since then, you know, my objective has always been that this is important to get it out into the community. You know, take it into the malls. Take panels so that you can show people outside of the museum to draw eyes into the museum. I think it's critically important because there's a rich history that we need to be able to promote. And I think by promoting that, then we create more awareness about our veterans and what our veterans go through post-service. And so, you know, we're sitting in a great building. And I know there's so much work that goes on into this building, and we need to take full advantage of everything that's going to go on here. The county commission just approved the Wild theme park that's going to come here. We've got the zoo. You know they're going to start charging for parking, right? No? Okay, but anyways, but I think what's important to do, why the lion's share of that parking charge is going to go to help the zoo. Maybe Commissioner Diaz and I could collaborate and maybe pushing some money this way also, because this is now going to be, if you consider that the Wild theme park along with the zoo is going to be a magnet to draw people here, then, you know, the museum is uniquely positioned now to be able to draw eyes. And then the one thing I would offer, you guys probably have a better chance of doing this stuff. You know, you need to put things outside that draw people's eyes, like, you know, a tank, a plane. You know, we are now living in a community that the generation that's coming needs to touch and feel things, right? And I went a couple of years ago, went to New Orleans with my wife on what she thought was going to be a romantic honeymoon or getaway. And I ended up taking her to the D-Day Museum in New Orleans. She loved it. It was fantastic. But the way they laid out their museum, you got a feel for D-Day, right? And you saw the Higgins boats. And by the way, it's in the old Higgins boat factory. So the Higgins boat, they had the planes, they had the tanks, they had German bunkers, and it gave you a real sense. And I think we've got folks that want to feel that as much as you can. As much as you could create that. So Willard, to me, that's where we need to kind of like create those situations where these museums come alive within these buildings, because then you get those young kids entertained in what they're doing.
Yeah, you made a great example there. One of my squadron mates and one of my mentors that I flew with out of Navy New Orleans, he's on the board there, and they do a great job. And my old life support officer, he actually portrays one of the Tuskegee Airmen at the museum there walking around. And then, so it's a great idea for that. As I send it back over to Brian, I'll leave you with two things. I never want to be remiss without letting our young people out there know, and all of you, that our Air Force scholarship programs, I'm the officer for the high schools here in Miami-Dade County. So any of our young people want an ROTC scholarship to go to any of our schools or off to the academy, we have that money available, and we're starting that process for this year. And I always say we're looking for citizens, athletes, and scholars. We're going to put $400,000 into you. We want our investment back. So I want to always get that word out there. And Commissioner, I know you've got a busy day and you'll be on your bicycle or roller skates. I just got a message from Christina White's office. There are already in Miami-Dade County 488,150 people who have cast their ballots.
Crazy.
So the commissioner doesn't have any time to waste. We appreciate all the time you spent with us. And Brian, I want to send it back over to you.
Willard, thank you so much for doing this with us. We have just a few minutes, Commissioner. I want to seize the opportunity to grab some questions from the room.
Sure, of course.
And I see Doc Atwood is already, ready.
Fired up.
And so, Doc, if you want to.
Your eyes lit up when I talked to you about that music,
You may
that
recall,
choir.
I'm the fellow that gave the Pledge of Allegiance when you assumed the dais.
Yeah.
And your dad was recruited by me into the selective service as a local board member. He volunteered for it. It was my Sunset Cruise, putting people in the selective service, and he was in the Census Bureau.
Yes, he was.
And he lived over west of
Still does.
FIU.
Still does.
Still does.
Yeah.
God bless him.
Thank you.
The thing that I wanted to share is that right on the other side of this wall in our library, we had an arrangement in writing with the Veterans Administration Hospital, wherein, because of the distance to go downtown, or the clinic in Homestead, we're right in the middle. Counselors came here and were providing counseling service.
Oh, really? Good.
Yeah, and we hope they will resume this once this doggone COVID is done, because we have a memorandum of understanding. They're trained clinicians, and maybe you could help with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And actually, you're right, because that trek downtown ain't easy, especially if we've got folks living down in the south end of the county, and expensive for them because, toll roads and what have you. So, yeah, absolutely.
So in the same spirit of that, so the FIU just was awarded a $500,000 grant from NSA to train veterans and first responders in new technology-based cyber workforce. And so one of the other, I think, important veteran issues is that transition to the workforce. Do you have any thoughts on sort of how to help facilitate transition of veterans into the workforce in Miami-Dade County? We know that veterans come with some really unique and amazing skills that would be overwhelmingly helpful to our community. You saw it firsthand, I'm sure, with your dad, and you're a product of that. And so what thoughts do you have in terms of how we can bolster the transition of our veterans?
Especially in the world of technology. We've seen such an evolution in technology, and obviously the military evolves in technology. A lot of what, notwithstanding those brave men and women that fly actual jets, but there's somebody sitting in a Tampa drone station someplace with a joystick, and maybe, I don't know, maybe we're training kids since very little to work with joysticks. But look, I would be open to see how we could collaborate, and I don't have an easy answer. It all depends on the skill set of that coming back veteran, of what they could do. Obviously pilots usually end up flying, and that's one of the things that they do. But thinking in terms of the grunt, how do we transition them? I think the military, I believe they still have these same programs where they help facilitate for college, and they create a nest egg for, and I know many that would join the military. Back when I was young, we were on the tail end of the Vietnam War. In fact, we were just out of the Vietnam War, and I remember guys my age that would joining specifically to get the funds to go to college. So I know that's available. The question could be, is there any kind of mechanisms that we could bring more value? I'd love to be able to work with FIU, Florida Memorial University, all the other assets we have here. Can that dollar amount be matched by some of the institutions? Yeah. And I think there'd be a lot of pride in a lot of the universities, graduating, returning veterans. They serve their country, And there's another way that not only did the military help them, but have the universities also add to that nest egg to help them, because it's quite expensive. I did prepaid college for my kids, and I can tell you, college education is getting more and more expensive by the day.
You know,
Despite what Bernie Sanders says.
I hear you. There's got to be utility to it, though, and that means there's got to be a pathway into the workforce.
Absolutely.
We can't just educate to educate. It's educate with utility, purpose of moving young people into our workforce. And so part of that match could be that pathway into a workforce in South Florida, in which, you know, the community leadership, community government is supporting and facilitating that bridge to the workforce, and building programs and conditions that could facilitate, again, those transitioning veterans. Because the reality is we're an incredible draw for veterans, you know, to stay in this community. Again, you know Southcom incredibly well.
Yeah.
Many Southcom personnel that do retire end up staying in South Florida.
Sure, of course.
And you see that in other combatant command areas where those populations surge with veterans as a product of the footprint that those military organizations have in their communities. And so, you know, thinking about how to do more with Southcom, how to do more with, you know, academic institutions to bridge way. I mean, at FIU we have 1,600 veterans or dependents of veterans, one of the largest, you know, in the state.
It's a great number.
In terms of how many. And so now, you know, we're going to produce some highly skilled veterans through the sort of amplification education, but now we need the jobs to get there.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And that's part of it.
And vocational training too, because I think one of the things that I think we've gone away from, you know, not everybody goes to college. You're absolutely right. And in my family, I've got a huge family. I got many that were blessed that have gone to college and gotten higher degrees. But there's always 4 or 5 in a family, like school's just not for them. But doesn't mean that they don't have the school, the tools to be successful. And, you know, guys, you know, all of us would pay top dollar for a great mechanic, you know, a great electrician, and there's honorable work and actually very rewarding work and financially rewarding work in all these spaces. Sometimes, you know, we just kind of like get into the silo that you have to have all these degrees in order to be successful in life, when, you know, the guy that lives next door to my house is a plumber, and, you know, he does real good for himself.
I just had plumbing issues. I know they do.
Oh, we all have plumbing issues.
I want to be respectful of your time, and we may have time for one more question here in the room. And if there are any questions online that we didn't get to, Commissioner, I'd love to be able to follow up with your
sure,
office
absolutely.
and be able to render answers back to those. But sir, go ahead.
And one of the problems that we have as veterans here in the county, probably across the country, is we have a low visibility of our military community, of our veterans. And one of the things that can bring veterans out, because they get out of the service and all of a sudden they find they're alone, or maybe their families are searching for a job, and they lose that esprit de corps that they had with other people in the services. Our visibility is very important. We've become a Purple Heart county. We have Purple Heart cities. And what I would like to ask you is that we want your support for this sacred building right here to be the centerpiece of our veterans, number one. Number two, we want to put in a Gold Star Family Memorial to honor the families of those who have fallen. Right? And we would like to create a Purple Heart Highway from, say, where 95 ends, US 1, we'd like to go all the way down to Key West and have a Purple Heart Highway. But more of these visibility things that we have to show veterans we're a veteran community. We honor you, I think helps those people and brings them together and brings them out of their little fiefdoms in the American Legion or VFW or veterans of Vietnam veterans, DAV, Marine League, wherever they are, to be a community as a whole.
Yeah. Look, I think those are all great ideas, to be perfectly honest with you. And I think you'd find allies in the state. If we wanted to do something with the turnpike, you definitely found allies in the county. If you wanted to take a county road and do something, you know, you know, bring the ideas, and we could, you know, understand that for a person who's not a veteran, I need to take direction. I don't like to jump into something that is going to disrespect somebody, or so I'd like to take direction. You know, the board has always kind of relied on Pepe as a person who served, and kind of lean on him. Now, when he leaves, you know, I don't know if there will be any board member that'll be there that could take the lead on these issues. But if the veterans just kind of give us the compass, we'll run with things. But like I said, it's always, for me, and I think I speak for a couple of other elected officials, always like to be very respectful. You know, we didn't wear the uniform. You know, I didn't go to I think the guys that I grew up with, some of them ended up going to Beirut or Lebanon, but I didn't do any of that. So to me, you know, I'm always very respectful of those that did. And so I gotta just take lead. You lead, you tell me this is the idea, then you know what, we'll collaborate and we'll be right behind you to get this thing done because I think it's important, right? I think, you know, Miami Lakes did something recently which I thought was pretty cool. You know, they started hanging the names of veterans on their light poles. I thought that was pretty interesting, you know, to show different folks. I think in Miami Lakes, I had probably at one time the oldest living veteran from North Korea, still alive. He passed on, obviously, but all that stuff is, I mean, this cool stuff, you know, that we honor them and want to support them. But you guys got to lead. You lead and we follow.
Well, you know, Commissioner, whenever I speak, I always, and I wish you would remember this, I always tell people, you don't have to wear a uniform to be a patriot.
True. Well, I appreciate that. And I know there's some questions out there, but I know we're out of time. And again, I know you've got a busy schedule. You're all over the place today and this weekend. So if you have questions, throw them in the chat. I'm going to follow up with the commissioner's office and get some answers to those. Willard, I appreciate you joining us. Commissioner, of course, it's an honor. I do want to let you know that we are working on getting that tank out front.
Nice.
I've talked to Dr. Atwood a few times. We're trying to either get a jet plane. Willard, if you can help us.
Yeah, man, we got to get that. Don't leave us out, man. What's up with that?
If you can get us one of those fighter jets, we want something.
Come up with that's a big process for us, but we'll work on that and start the process. And Brian, give the commissioner my cell number, and commissioner, send me your information. And when you get that cruise together, man, and you're county, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I'll trade you a 3-day cruise for some sort of a Phantom fighter or something that we can.
Well, I tell you what, we'll talk to the guys. I mean, now I fly in the civilian Air Force, in the civilian part of the Air Force, in the Civil Air Patrol, that I encourage all our kids to do. And we fly in and out of Opelika, so we try to stay quiet at your house. But if we want to get your backseat ride the F-16, we'll coordinate that. Normally that jet's not the number one that's flying because they need the parts out of it. But we'll work on that.
Wait. I want to be clear. You want to put me in the back of a jet of spare part planes? Is that what you're saying?
No. What I'm saying is that because they don't have to have, it's got additional stuff in it, they take the parts out of that one and put it in the ones that they need. Okay. But Gus is in there. He can reach out and start to kind of arrange that. So we'll put you in the back seat on Saturday or Sunday on a drill weekend.
I'd love to do that. That'd be a lot of fun.
Willard, thank you so much, Commissioner.
Thank you. All right, man. God bless you.
Thank you so much. Thanks,
you guys have a great day.
Promise
all right, thank you.
Answered and get them out to you. I have your email addresses, and so I'll engage you shortly. So with that, this is it. Let's get you on a tour of the building.
Let's do it. Thank you, guys.
God bless you.
Thank you, too.
Let me
Mask on for safety.
Yes.